Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Just tuning into this thread now, I have tons of stories to share, both personally and through occurrences that have happened to relatives or friends of mine. Starting off with something that happened to my dad last year. Not related to a graveyard shift per se, but involves spooky things happening at night. Let's do this. Last year. Dad is a gynecologist who owns his own private consulting rooms. Medical practices generally require a high level of security due to the common belief among junkies that they stock medication in the building overnight. Dad has an alert system set up whereby an app on his phone informs him if the alarm at work is going off. Be 4 a.m. when the alarm is tripped and his phone goes mental. We lived and had the consulting rooms in a very good suburb with a low crime rate, so he, being the skeptic he is, thinks it's not a burglary and might have been a spider running across the alarm sensor or something. If anyone lives in or is familiar with Melbourne, Australia, the suburb was Brighton. Drives over, only a 5-minute drive up the main road. Pulls into the driveway and notices the front door wide open. Alarm is still wailing at full volume. Shouts into the building, the cops are on their way, you better get out of here. No response for 2 minutes. Walks into the building and turns the lights on. Sees a 40-centimeter fishing knife resting on the reception desk. Nope.jpg and calls the cops. My face when I woke up later that morning and he told me the story. Was obviously left behind by some junkie burglars who hauled ass the second they heard the alarm, but bothers me to this day with the thought of what could have happened if he went to check it out and they were still there. More to come, stay tuned. This next one happened while I was working as a janitor in an office complex. The place contained a variety of businesses, the most dominant of which being telemarketing offices. For example, the assholes who call you up and ask if you want to save 10% on your heating bill each month. As these places generally operate anywhere between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m., some poor old bastard has to come in and clean the place after everyone's gone home for the day. That was my job. Generally the job is very boring, but I was only ever there for no more than 5 hours. The place only contained 7 offices, so it could be thoroughly cleaned at that time. Be working 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. that night. Come in, place the bag in storage closet, go to grab cleaning utensils. Suddenly hear a phone ringing in the distance. Think nothing of it, given how distant the sound is, might be coming from the complex next door. Realize that the sound is coming from above me where one of the telesales offices is located. Not very scared because I was still pretty drunk from the football game I went to 3 hours beforehand. Ringing persists. Curiosity takes hold. Run upstairs even though I'm sure the thing will still be ringing when I got there. Unlock the door, switch on the lights. Places, naturally, completely empty. Ringing is coming from a booth in the far left corner. Slowly approach booth and pick up phone. Hello. Nobody responds on the other end, though I can hear someone's there. Breathing noise and slight shuffling. Assume the sound must be cutting out and say this office is closed for the day, bro. You can call back at 8 a.m. at the start. Suddenly interrupted by a high-pitched, blood-chilling scream that lasted until I slammed the phone down in shock. Probably about 5 seconds. Thought it was some smart-ass 14-year-old kids trying to spook me and continued cleaning. Grab the vacuum from the cleaning cupboard and switch it on. Start doing the bottom floor corridor. Whole process takes about 10 minutes. Turn vacuum off, noticing once its roar had died down that the phone upstairs is ringing again. Dash upstairs ready to show these 14-year-olds I mean business. Pick up phone. Listen, asshole, keep calling this number and I cut myself off after I notice what's coming through the other end. Some sort of distorted music box style tune, sounded like a children's nursery rhyme being played backwards. Start to get genuinely spooked. Get back to work, put music on the intercom system. Burzum, philosophem for those who are familiar with such music, while I clean. Nothing spoopy happens for the rest of the shift, phone doesn't ring. Go home, eat leftover spaghetti bolognese, go to sleep. The next shift, however, was even creepier. Wake up to phone ringing at 8 a.m. Answer the phone with a frustrated hello, because partially hungover. It's my boss, bloke who owns the complex. He sounds anxious and upset.
Oh my god, Anon, something has happened, come in ASAP.
Pissed off because it was my day off and I'd planned to go to a mate's place and smoke up all afternoon. Place was 7 train stops away. Takes me about half an hour to get there. Stunned by what I see, the place is cordoned off with police tape, squad cars everywhere. Office workers with blankets around their shoulders, crying hysterically in each other's arms, talking to police officers. Aw shit. Gif. Find boss. Tells me that one of the telemarketers in the building where the phone kept ringing suddenly flipped out, screaming as she bashed her head on the desk before taking out a razor blade and aggressively slicing her arm up, crying hysterically. Other telemarketers are obviously and understandably traumatized. Mentioned the previous evening's phone calls to boss. All color drains from his face. Says wait here and goes over to a pair of police officers. Boss, police come over to me.
Sir, my name is Senior Sergeant Dundee. I understand you experienced some odd occurrences last night on your shift. I was hoping you wouldn't mind coming down to St. Kilda Road to chat to us about them.
The police headquarters for Melbourne, Australia, where I live, is mentioned in my previous story. Go with them because they are intrigued to discover what happened. They put me in an interview room, nice enough to give me a coffee and a Tim Tam, chocolate-covered biscuit that is popular here. Middle-aged fat guy in a navy suit comes in, says hello, sits down, places tape recorder on table. Talk to him for what seems like forever about the phone calls. Takes a couple of notes, thanks me for my time, says I can go. Take train home to my buddy's place, smoked up, hypothesized over what could have happened. My face when I realized I was the poor sod who had to clean up all the blood the next night after the forensics team was done. Nothing unusual or spoopy happened when I did the cleanup, but the blood was everywhere, splattered across the ceiling, windows, desks, everywhere. I left that job about a month ago but found out in the end what had happened. Get call at 3 p.m. a couple of days after the final shift at job. It's the po-po.
Hi Anon, it's Senior Sergeant Dundee. I was hoping you'd have the time to discuss the events that happened at your work.
I quit that job a couple of days ago, not sure if I'll be much help.
That's fine, just some developments in the case that we feel we should share with you.
Wasn't doing anything particularly interesting or time-consuming, so heard him out. Apparently the woman who went mental and cut herself had began acting strangely in the weeks leading up to the incident. Dyed her hair black, wouldn't talk much except to clients over the phone, sported dark rings around her eyes as if she hadn't slept for days. Police, of course, went over to her house after the incident to inform next of kin, etc. The number she had given the telemarketing office as an emergency contact would just ring out. No answer at the door. Police hear strange music and murmuring coming from inside. Investigate the house, check the backyard, look into all the windows. Windows covered up with black garbage bags. Cops begin to notice shit's a bit weird. Say at front door.
This is the police. If you do not open the door, we will be forced to enter the premises.
Even though I'm certain they would have needed a warrant. No response, cops break down door. Stunned at what they see. Entire interior was painted black, including the couch, microwave, bed, everything. Writing on the walls everywhere in red ink. 3 spookofivme.tif. Antipsychotic medication found in the bathroom. Police believe that the woman was a schizophrenic who stopped taking her meds and progressively became more psychotic. Even though I was interested to hear about what had happened, I began wondering why the police were telling me this, as I felt that the information might have been a little too private to tell the janitor of the victim's former workplace about. I found out shortly after. Top tells me that while investigating the house they found a collection of Polaroid photographs of various people in the office. Appear to be candidly taken, usually from under the woman's desk, others from a window as they walked to their cars. Officer says she took photos of me. Creeped out at this, seeing as I was only ever in the building alone. Forensic lab analyzes the music that was playing in the CD deck during the cops' arrival as it was seen as somewhat significant. Audio cleared up, voice track isolated. Apparently the CD was an hour-long loop of strange ambient music the woman made herself on her laptop as she mumbled nonsensical ramblings over the music in a gentle yet sinister tone. Police found a particular 15-second segment interesting.
I'll kill everyone. Assholes think they've got me in a corner, but they don't. I am godlike.
Police don't offer to show me the recordings, and, frankly, I'm not overly keen to hear them. The officer says the police told me because he thought that my life and the life of everyone else was in genuine danger due to the nature of the recording. More to come, X. This next one happened when I was working at a convenience store. There were only 3 staff members there, so we worked pretty regular hours. Guy 1 would work from about 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., Guy 2 would work 4 p.m. to midnight, and I'd work midnight to 6 a.m. Working one night, boring, only 2 people have come in during the last 3 hours. After midnight, the store requires whoever is working, me most of the time, to manually open the sliding doors for people. Obviously, so 4 guys in balaclavas holding knives can't just waltz in on their own accord. Sitting in back, playing video when I hear the beeping noise it makes when somebody is standing at the sliding doors. Go out to let them in. Nobody there. Then who was door.png? Think nothing of it because these sensors malfunction all the time. Go back to back room. Sensor goes off again. Think it might have been someone who was about to come in and went back to their car to get their wallet. Nobody there again. Start to think it's kids messing with me. Go outside to see what's going on. Nothing out of the ordinary. Turn to go back inside when I see out of the corner of my eye something going on in the car park next door. Go over to investigate. There's a guy in a green hoodie furiously trying to break into somebody's car. Shout out "Oi," hoping he'd sprint off. Instead pulls out a blood-filled syringe and charges at me. Flip out and sprint down the street. Used to be part of the athletics team in high school, so could obviously outrun a strung-out junkie. 4 blocks away, trying to catch my breath. Realize I left my keys in the back room, so I couldn't get back into the store. Call co-worker to come let me in. Co-worker is pissed. Not paranormal, but still spoopy. This next one also happened at the convenience store I worked at, and is one of the reasons I left it, along with other 3 spookifiv me phenomena. Be 2 a.m. Usual boring shift, watching Louis Therodoko's out back while eating Doritos. Sensor goes off. Get up and look at the door. It's a woman in about her 60s, gray hair, hunched over in a large black jacket. She is shivering violently. I remembered it was a particularly chilly evening, so I felt bad and let her in. Greet the customer as per usual. "Hi, how are you going?" She doesn't respond, goes to one of the far aisles. Notice a genuine look of fear and dread on her face as she walks over. She takes ages, getting impatient because I want to go back to my doko. Switch to the security camera feed to see if she's stealing any shit. Same expression on her face, except she has her coat on the ground and is stuffing her hands in and out of its pockets. Cheeky confirms shoplifter. Shout out, "I can see what you're doing. Put the items back on the shelf and leave now before I call the police." Don't have a gun behind the counter, as a lot of places in the States would, because restrictive Australian gun laws. Woman starts emitting this weird groaning noise like she was in agonizing pain. Start to get fed up with her shit, exit the door on the side of the counter and march over to the aisle. I mean it, get up and put your items back on the shelf. She keeps groaning and looks straight at me, eyes enormously wide, mouth stretched in a painful grin. Suddenly jumps up and sprints out of the store at a speed I would consider uncharacteristic of a woman of her age. Takes out a promotional setup of Red Bull in the process, but keeps running off into the distance. Leaves her jacket behind. Reach into the pockets to see what items she was trying to knock off. Pricked by something sharp, pull finger out and notice blood drop. Internally pray that I haven't just pricked myself with some AIDS junkie's needle. Peer into pocket, see various sharp objects such as razor blades, nails, little pieces of glass. Well shit son.jpg. Rummage through all jacket pockets. Woman had pockets full of sharp objects, nearly everything under the sun including syringes. Got AIDS tested the next day, all good. Few of the items were large enough to be effectively used as a weapon against me. Save for a box cutter in the breast pocket, but the whole situation was still creepy.
Australia is not real. It's a hoax made for us to believe that Britain moved over their criminals to someplace. In reality, all these criminals were loaded off the ships into the waters, drowning before they could see land ever again. It's a cover-up for one of the greatest mass murders in history, made by one of the most prominent empires. Australia does not exist. All things you call proof are actually well-fabricated lies and documents made by the leading governments of the world. Your Australian friends. They're all actors and computer-generated personas, part of the plot to trick the world. If you think you've ever been to Australia, you're terribly wrong. The plane pilots are all in on this, and have in all actuality only flown you to islands close nearby, or in some cases, parts of South America, where they have cleared space and hired actors to act out as real Australians. Australia is one of the biggest hoaxes ever created, and you have all been tricked. Join the movement today and make it known that they have been deceived. Make it known that this has all just been a cover-up. The things these Australians says to be doing, all these swear words and actions based on alcoholism, MDMA and bad decisions, are all ways to distract you from the ugly truth that is one of the greatest genocides in history. 162,000 people were said to have been transported to this imaginary land during a mere 80 years, and they are all long dead by now. They never reached that promised land. Tell the truth. Stand up for what is right. Make sure to spread the word. Australia is not real. It's a code word for the cold-blooded murder of more than 100,000 people, and it is not okay. We will not accept this. Stand up for the ones who died. Let it be known that Australia does not exist.
I have a story for you /x/. Have any of you had a recurring dream? Like a really vivid one where you feel as though you're actually there? I used to have this one strange dream in particular when I was a kid. I had this dream on and off for the span of several years. I've never posted this story anywhere else, and to be honest, the only other person I've told this to was my older brother, who thought I was delusional. Everything here is completely 100% true. The year 2000. I'm 6 years old. My family had recently moved into a brand new house in a nice little neighborhood in southeast Melbourne, Australia. This neighborhood is located just south of, pretty much a part of, a section of a huge national park. Pretty much a mix of open fields and dense forest with hiking and bike riding trails running throughout the park. Our house was at the end of a cul-de-sac that was about less than 30 meters from the tree line and the entrance to one of the walking tracks. 2007. I'm 13 at this point. Me, my older brother and the kids from next door often went out exploring the forest for a number of hours at a time. Walking along the trails without a care in the world, riding out bikes to the lake in the summer to go swimming. We decided to camp out there one night, not too far from the house, but not in the backyard. The morning before heading out, we all decided that we'd go to our super secret hideout. This really dense area about a 20 minutes walk from our house. We take a 5-man tent, sleeping bags, flashlights and a whole bunch of snacks and make our way into the woods. We set up pretty quickly and get a small fire going. By the time the sun had set, we had already eaten most of the food and were in the process of telling each other spooky ghost stories. At about 1 a.m., we were all pretty damn tired, so we crawled into the tent and went to sleep. I can remember exactly what I dreamt that night, as this would become a routine thing for me. It starts with me waking up in my bed really early in the morning, like 5 a.m. I get out of bed, still wearing my PJs, and walk to the kitchen. All the lights are on and everything seems as though it's very subtly tinted blue. For some unknown reason, I walk out the front door, barefoot, and make my way into the pitch-black woods along the main trail in complete silence. After maybe 1 kilometer in, I walk off to the right, down a slight hill and into a particularly dense area. After making my way through in between some bushes, I step onto a narrow rocky dirt path that snaked its way through the trees off into the distance. At this point the sun has already risen enough to light the place up, and I notice that everything still seems slightly blue, unlike the usual green and brown. For some reason, it only dawns on me now that I have absolutely no idea where I am. After walking for what feels like hours, I finally make my way into this perfect little clearing. Everything looks just the same as any other part of the forest, except for one glaring feature. There's an old bright red car parked right in the middle of the clearing. It was rather clean and seemed to have been looked after by someone. I'm not at all fazed by this, and I walk up to the driver's side door and pull the handle. The door opens and I look down at the seat. The seat is heavily stained with what might have been blood or wine or something similar, and there are a number of small broken bones on the floor near the pedals. The rest of the car, however, is completely fine and damn near spotless. It's at this point that I decided that I'm tired from my long walk, so I closed the door and opened the back seat door. I crawl inside, closing the door after me, and lay down on the back seats, drifting off to sleep. The next thing I remember was waking up in the tent next to my brother and our friends. I can still remember every single detail of my dream as though it had just happened. I decided it was nothing but a crazy dream and wake everyone up so we can pack up and head home. I spend the entire walk home in silence, thinking about my dream. Over the next 3 months, I had the exact same dream about 7 times. At this point, I'm starting to get a little worried. I ask my brother if I can tell him something. After explaining exactly what I saw to him, he asked me if I'd been stealing booze from our parents' liquor cabinet. I tell him several times that I'm being completely serious, but he brushes me off, claiming that I'm just crazy. I consider telling my mom, but decide to try and debunk this mystery on my own. I'd be Sherlock Holmes and get to the bottom of it. Didn't have a computer at home, so that ruled out searching online for answers. Couldn't find any books on dreams at the school library, so I pretty much gave up at that point. I was still having the dream about once every 2 weeks or so. After several more months of having this repeat dream, it started happening less and less frequently, and life pretty much returned to normal. Late August 2012. I have the dream again for the first time in about 18 months. Exactly the same as every other time before. I decide I'm gonna get to the bottom of this if it no matter what. I'm sick of having this stupid dream and I thought it had stopped. I remember I set out from home around 5 p.m. on the 23rd. I can still vividly recall the exact path my dream had led me down, and I start making my way into the woods for the first time in roughly 2 years. I walk along the main trail until I reach the slope I had walked down many times before in my dream. I make a right and head into the bushes. After a little while, I find the dirt path leading through the trees and I follow it along. I walk for hours until I finally reach the clearing. But there's no red car anywhere. There are, however, a set of tire tracks leading off further into the woods. At this point, I'm thoroughly freaked out and consider turning back before it gets too dark, but I decide to push onwards. I follow the tracks along a short way to an area with considerably less trees. And then I see it. The old red car. Just sitting there. But it's been completely trashed and busted up. I'm a mix of excited and on the verge of shitting myself. I walk up to the car to inspect it. The driver's seat has been ripped out along with the hood and the rear door. It looked like it had been sitting there for years. I whip out my phone and take 2 photos just in case I never see it again. I start jogging back along the path and get home around 9 p.m. I eat dinner with my family in complete silence, a million thoughts racing through my head. I went to bed that night expecting to have the dream again, but it didn't happen. I haven't had the dream again ever since that afternoon in the woods. Still have no explanation as to why this has happened to me. 3 nights ago. Going through photos on my old piece of shit Asus laptop. Find the photos of the car. All these memories flood back. Decide to write this out and post it to /x/. Pic related. It's the car, taken from my phone. Here's the other photo. I honestly have no idea as to why I started having the dreams, but it is without a doubt the spookiest thing to ever happen to me. Does anyone have any ideas as to why this would have happened? It all started that night we went camping in the woods. I will be monitoring this thread periodically, answering any questions I can.
This reminds me of a story. Visiting my friend at his mom's house in Melbourne. Let's call this friend Matt. His mom owns a cat. Cat's name is Shitlips. Friend's brother comes over one day, let's call him Anthony. Anthony tries to get a rise out of me because I'm usually quiet. Takes Shitlips by the back leg and starts to play around with it. Cat doesn't give a shit, things are basically dead as it is. I also don't give a shit. Me and aforementioned friend leave Anthony to his cat teasing, which has quickly escalated to back and forth hissing. Drive to Matt's house to discover 2 of our other friends are there unexpectedly waiting for us. Matt's roommates let them in. Right as one of these friends is taking a huge bong rip, in walks the landlord on a Saturday. Just came to get my drivers. What the? Bong rip is exhaled right in the landlord's face. Hyena-like laughing and an obviously irate landlord ensues. Casually hightail it out of there whilst also casually rolling a few joints as we walk out. Don't give a care, levels are through the roof as we haven't seen these 2 guys in years. Proceed to hotbox the car with the front window slightly open whilst driving down through the Melbourne CBD. Get pulled over. Matt tells cops it's cig smoke whilst donning the biggest shit-eating grin this side of Footscray. Cop tells us to put the window down more and lets us off with a warning. Laugh our asses off all the way back to Matt's mom's house. The minute we pull up in the driveway, we see this ball of fur fly over the fence. Thump onto the roof of the car. Get out of car to inspect said thump. Anthony and Shitlips shenanigans escalated to a less than friendly game of backyard cricket. MFW, somehow this is all connected.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.